Hello. Hello, hello. Hello. I have something for you today that I'm excited about, something that I've been working on for a little while. It's a short story. A short story. It's a mystery. Psychological. Kind of a thriller. Not really. I hope you enjoy. It's called The 10th Key. I'll be reading it in a soft-spoken voice. The letter arrived on a cold October morning. Clara Wynne hadn't touched a case since her retirement 6 months earlier. She'd grown used to the quiet. The envelope was sealed in blood-red wax, stamped simply H. You are cordially invited to Thornwell Manor. Midnight. One final truth awaits. She almost burned it, but that stamp, those initials, H, reached into a place she had buried years ago. At midnight, Clara stood at the gates of Thornwell Manor, abandoned since the fire that shook the community. She was surprised that no developer had come and knocked it down to make way for some high-rise apartment. The once stately iron gates, now rusted over, creaked as Clara pushed through them. Inside, Clara found herself standing in a once grand foyer, now charred. The manor lit only by the occasional candle that guided her to a long, dim corridor, seemingly untouched by flame. 10 doors. Roman numerals above each. At the far end of the hallway, an old grandfather clock ticked solemnly. She hesitated for a moment. What kind of game is this? Her heart beating in her chest, not knowing what to expect, she stepped forward. The door behind her shut with a deafening thud. Pivoting on her heel, she tried the handle, but to no avail. It was locked tight. The only way through was forward. Breathing deeply to calm her nerves, she started toward the first door. Beside it hung a key. The lock clicked as the tumblers fell into place, and the door opened. Room 1. The fire. The smell hit her first. Charred wood, melted plastic, and something sharp beneath it all. A man sat in a rocking chair facing a scorched wall. His back was to her. The man didn't turn. He held a photograph, its corners blackened, but the image still visible. Marianne Holloway, smiling in a garden. She came to you, he said in a rasping voice. Who are you? Clara replied. She begged. I don't know what you're talking about. Did you ever think to ask why she ran back into the fire? A flame curled along the edge of the photograph in his hand, yet he didn't flinch. Clara stepped forward, but the room went black. The truth is, she didn't ask. She ruled it to be a suicide. Her boyfriend tried to kill her. Her world fell apart. Open and shut case. A drawer creaked behind her. Inside, a folded note and a brass key. Clara opened the note. The truth may burn, but lies are the fire. She turned back, but the man and the chair were gone. Room 2. The confession. The room was nearly bare, save for a tape recorder sitting on a tea cart at the far end of the room. As Clara started toward it, suddenly snippets of voices began to play from all around her, confessions, testimonies. The recordings were a cacophony of words, but one stood out. "I didn't kill her. I tried to stop her from going back in. But the house, it was all ready." She had heard this before, but she hadn't listened. Another voice, her own, played next. "You're the only one who had motive, Fisk. You threatened her brother. That's what the neighbors said." A pause. "I didn't threaten Liam. I was protecting him. Henry was dangerous, and I loved Marianne." Static. Silence. It was Raymond Fisk, the boyfriend. Clara arrested him for the Holloway fire. She remembered his eyes, empty, defiant. Or so she thought. Suddenly, the room was silent again. Only the sound of her footsteps as Clara moved towards the tape recorder. She pressed play. "He begged you to look at the uncle. But what's the truth when public opinion is on the line?" Another key lay beside it. With fervor, she picked it up. Raymond Fisk was where he belonged, in a cell for the crimes he committed. And Henry Holloway was a philanthropist and a saint. He took those children in after their parents' death. Who could be behind this elaborate display? Room 3. The girl. A girl's bedroom. Marianne's bedroom. It was clean and tidy and brightly lit. A soft breeze blew through an open window. A music box played a broken lullaby when she opened it. On the bed lay diary pages, scattered, desperate. "I'm worried about Uncle Henry. He stays in his study and barely eats. I wonder if he is even sleeping. I tried asking him to get help, but he says he's fine. He even gets a little angry when I bring it up. That's not like him." Laura sat down, her fingers trembling as she turned the page. "Raymond thinks we should call someone. Maybe the police. They will help. They have to." But they didn't help. An officer conducted a wellness check, anonymously called in. It was reported resolved. And that was the end of the matter. Clara recalls the diary arriving on her desk, marked unverified. She hadn't even opened it. She frantically looked through the torn pages for any indication of what Marianne was so scared of. How could she have been so careless? Was there evidence that she overlooked? The music stopped. The room fell silent. A silver key sat inside the music box. Room 4. The investigator. The walls were covered in case notes. Her own handwriting. Her red strings. Her conclusions. All of them leading to Fisk. He had the means. He had the opportunity. Couple that with his troubled youth. Finding him was easy. Pressing him for a confession proved harder. But he was finally convicted after a long trial. She turned toward the adjacent wall. Notes, strings, never seen before. It showed names of the other victims that night. Marianne, Liam, and their Uncle Henry. In the center of the room, a mirror. She saw herself, and in the corner of the eye, behind her reflection, stood the old man from the first room, smiling. As she turned to face him, another key clinked to the ground where he stood. Who is he? Why does he look so familiar? Room 5. The brother. A young boy's room, strewn with toys. It was messy in the way that young boys' rooms tend to be. A model train set stretching from one side to the other. Toy soldiers in formation, ready for battle. She stepped carefully, feeling like an intruder. On the bed was a journal labeled Secret. Inside, stick drawings of a girl and boy. Below, crude captions, me and Marianne. She opened to the last entry. Uncle Henry is so fun. He says all kinds of funny, crazy things. I told Marianne, but she was scared. I said, don't worry. He's teaching me to shoot. A creaking noise behind her. A boy stood in the corner, flickering, faint. He looked just like the picture in her file. Clara's voice caught. Liam? Suddenly, he had vanished. She lifted a wooden toy soldier off the floor. A key was tucked into its base. Room 6. The silence. Pitch black. Clara hesitated to enter for fear she would fall into the void. Clara reached out but found nothing. Only the ticking of the grandfather clock, louder now. As she stepped into what seemed to be the center of the room, with the only light being that from the hallway, she heard footsteps behind her, and breathing. A whisper echoed in the black. How many doubts did you silence, Clara? She turned, trying to locate it. The inconsistencies, the letter, the uncle. You silenced them all. Suddenly she was blinded by camera flashes. A podium, reporters, her younger self, speaking into a microphone. The Holloway case is closed. The suspect is in custody. Windmere can sleep easy. The flashes faded. The crowd disappeared. Only one figure remained. Marianne. She stood at the edge of the light, eyes hollow. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. And then she vanished. And in Clara's hand, though she hadn't moved, was another key. Room 7. The grief. Candles lit a path through a stone chapel. The nameplate on the casket read Marianne Rose Holloway, 1995 to 2014. Clara moved to the front pew, sat, and stared. She hadn't attended the funeral. A chorus of voices echoed from behind her. Justice is not the same as closure. You gave us neither. Clara stood and turned to reply to the voices, but she was alone. Not even the company of the dead, for inside the casket there was no body, only another key, and under it, a funeral pamphlet with her name and a date she would remember forever. This was the date of Raymond Fisk's conviction. Room 8. The house. This room, again, was bare. Like the second one, with only a table in the middle, and on it a replica of Thornwell Manor, smaller. A dollhouse. Clara leaned in. The dolls were all there. Raymond, Marianne, Henry, and Liam. There was another figure, placed outside of the house, isolated, with a key in its hands. Clara. A letter, inside the dollhouse bedroom. You never truly entered this house. Not until now. Room 9. The name. This room was unfamiliar. A study, with dark oak bookshelves, the desk lined with files and legal tomes. Clara opened one. It was labeled, Win, Clara, Incident 0117H.H. Photos spilled out. Surveillance stills. Photos of Marianne's diary. Fisk's unwavering testimony. A psychological report stating Clara exhibited signs of tunnel vision in complex cases, especially those involving public pressure. A final page, dated the day of the fire. The only logical solution to an unsolvable problem. I have analyzed it over and over from every angle. The mental strain is unmanageable. The human mind can only endure so much chaos before it reaches a point of no return. I have reached that point. I am aware of the consequences. I have considered them, but they do not outweigh the cost of continuing this existence. Fire stabilizes everything. It is the only action that will provide an end to the internal conflict, this overwhelming stimuli. A clean slate. I have no choice but to act. Every second without resolution is a second wasted, a second of suffering, a second of further destabilization. Fire burns away the excess, strips everything down to its essentials. There is no room for emotion and logic. Fire is simply the most efficient and viable solution. It will end the chaos. It will bring clarity. It is the only option that makes sense. We will all burn together. Signed, Henry Holloway. Stamped in red ink. Redacted by DCIC Win. She had blocked the file. She had to. No one could know. It would ruin too many lives. It would ruin the community. Raymond Fisk was no one. He had the means, he had the opportunity. She had forgotten, or buried it so deeply, she believed her own lie. A pen rolled across the desk toward her, and next to it, a 9th key. The final room was quiet. Dust hung motionless in the amber light. A single chair. That same old man seated in it. Henry Holloway. Older now, though that was impossible. His hands folded like a man at peace. I didn't think you'd make it this far, he said. You killed her, Clara replied, her voice hoarse. And Liam, you burned them. He didn't argue. You've known that for a long time. Well, you know what you meant to this community if they found out what you had done. Yes, Holloway said. Unfortunately, I didn't count on poor Raymond ending up in your sights. Tidy. Believable. You gave them closure. You kept your badge. The community none the wiser. On the table between them, the 10th key. Jet black. Ornate. Unlike the others. Inside, a lock. Ready to be turned. What does it unlock? She asked. It doesn't, he said. It locks. She stared at it. If you turn it, he said, everything you saw tonight fades. The letter disappears, the diary, my confession. Your silence remains intact. The world believes the lie. And you go back to a quiet retirement. And if I don't? If you remove the key from the lock and leave here, you will lose the life you built. They'll dig into every case you've ever touched. They'll call you corrupt. They'll call you reckless. You'll die. A name no one respects. But you'll make it right. Raymond Fisk will go free. If I do that, your name will be without respect too. He leaned back and heaved a sigh. I've been dead for years. Do you want justice, Clara? Or peace? She looked down at the key. She thought of Marianne's diary, of Liam's voice, of Raymond Fisk sitting in a cold cell for a crime she knew he didn't commit. She thought of the life she built, the awards, the reputation, the quiet dignity of her retirement. A deep silence filled the room. What seemed like an age had passed. And then, Clara put a hand on the key. She turned it. With a soft click, the room collapsed like ash in the wind. Epilogue. Clara awoke on her sofa, a cup of tea, cold, in her hand. The fire was low. Rain tapped at the window. There was no envelope on the table, no letter, no diary, no confession. Only the steady ticking of a grandfather clock. She didn't remember where it came from, but it's always been there, it seems. She stared at it for a long while. Outside, the world turned as it always had, and deep in the walls of Thornwell Manor, now just faded, memory of a dream long forgotten. The 10th door stayed locked forever.